welcome to our channel, Darvanalee Designs Studio. For those that don't know, my name is Nicole Reed and we are on block 4 in our 2019 foundation paper piecing block of the month. This month we're working on the Clay's Choice, and this is what the block looks like. It's a nice, simple and quick and easy block to go together. So let's get started. Okay, so by now you should be starting to get used to the idea of paper piecing and how we're flipping it over and stitching on the line and everything like that. So off camera I prepared up all my templates just to save us a little bit of time. You've got your block layout, and you've also got a colouring in sheet as well, and those links are underneath this video and you'll find all that information over on our blog. So if you just head on to the blog link down there, it'll scoot you on across to where you need to get everything. So we've got our template. As I said, I've already cut out my templates off camera. We're using white, black and red today again. Okay, and there's a couple other things that you're going to need. You're going to need your little ruler and your piece of card or template plastic, your hand presser, your rotary cutter, your glue pen, as always, your pins and thread snips, and also some paper scissors. So we're going to get started on the block. Right, so you can see here I've just taken template A and B because these are actually going to get joined together, and then you will just repeat that for the rest of the block. So we'll get started on this one. So first of all, you can see here that we've got template A and template B, and you can see that we've got some black and we've got some red. So just to refresh your memory, the dark grey is representing the dark colour and the light grey is representing your light colour, and in my case the dark colour is black and the fabric that's playing a light colour is my red, and then the white is your background. So you can see on template A here we've actually got two squares that are both the same colour. So we still do everything exactly the same way. We don't need to cut a rectangle or anything like that. We just cut our two squares and then we will sew them on. So I've just been rummaging through my scraps and I found some scrap pieces of fabric that I can use for this project. So that's the great thing about foundation paper piecing, is that you can actually use some of your scraps. So as we've done in the past, we're just going to take our template A, we're going to flip that over, and you should be able to just see where your A1 is. So that's the piece of fabric we're going to put down first. I'm just going to put a little dollop of glue, and then I'm going to make sure that that is covering up the template properly. Okay, so I've stuck that down, and now I'm going to flip that back over and just making sure that I've actually got a 1/4 inch seam allowance across this center line. I just place the template plastic on that, and you can see there, just by looking at that, you can see that that's not quite a 1/4 inch. So I'm just going to have to do a little bit of adjustment, and that's the beauty of this glue. You can just readjust if you need to. And I'm just going to go a little bit further over that center line, making sure that I've got enough covering my seam allowance just here. Okay, so flip it over again. I grab my template plastic and I pop that on, and I can see that I definitely have 1/4 inch. And now I'll just make sure, and I can see that I've got a little bit excess there, so I can get rid of that. And now I've got a perfect 1/4 inch seam. So I can now flip that back over, and I can get my second piece of fabric, which just happens to be white, and I'm just going to line that up with the raw edges there. I'm going to grab a pin, I'm going to pop that in place there, and that's just going to hold my fabric in place, and I know that it's not going to move on me when I head over to the sewing machine. So as we've done in past blocks, now we are just going to sew on that dark line, reducing our stitch length down. Remember to do that, to reduce that down to a 2 or a 1.9, and you're going to stitch on that line. Okay, so you can see there that I've just stitched along that line, so we can remove our pin, and then we can just flip our piece of fabric over and grab our little hand press and give that a little bit of a press. And now we can trim that up, because that's it. That template is now done. So we just grab our ruler. I might grab my longer one. placing, so you can see here we've got the 2 dark lines, and just like we've done in our other blocks, we are going to place our 1/4 inch on that inner dark line, and then we're going to trim off the excess fabric and get rid of all that paper. And you just keep doing that all the way around. And there we go. The first part of the template is done. So that is template A. We can set that aside, and now we're going to work on template B. So you can see here again, we're just going to follow the sequence of the numbers. So we're going to start with our red piece up here. So again, I'm going to flip that over, and you can hold it up to the light, or you can have a light box. I'm not using a light box on camera today because it actually reflects back and you can't actually see what I'm doing. So just to show you where the line is, I'm going to grab my friction pen, and I can see through the paper quite clearly. So I can just mark that line, and I know that I've got to come 1/4 inch over here. Alrighty, so the red's going to go here and the black is going to go here. Okay, so I just get a dollop of glue, and I'm just going to place that on there, and I'm just going to sort of make sure that it's covering all of that triangle underneath there, and I can see that it is. I could probably come just a smidgen back a little bit, and I'm just going to pop the glue down there, and that'll hold my fabric in place. And then I'm going to flip it over like we always do, just to create that nice 1/4 inch. We're going to place the template plastic on the dark line, what's connecting B1 to B2, and then we're just going to place our ruler on the 1/4 inch mark, and you can see there I've eyeballed that pretty well, but I will take away those little bits just to give it a nice straight edge. So you can see there that was pretty much on par for that. And you will get better as you're going along. You will actually get more and more confident with what you're doing, and you'll be able to eyeball your 1/4 inch a little bit better. Alright, so I've got this triangle here, and I'm going to see if that's going to fit on and make sure that it covers, and it is. So I can just pop that on there like so, grab a pin and pin that into place, remembering to place at this stage you're placing your fabrics right sides together. So your first fabric that goes down, so your number 1 fabric, is always facing up, and then every fabric after that is right sides together. Alrighty, so that's just needs a little bit more adjusting, and I'll pop that pin into place, and then I'm going to head over to the sewing machine, and just like we've done in the previous template, we're going to sew on that line just there. Okay, so we've sewn on the line. We can remove our pin, and like always, we just flip our fabric back like so, grab our little hand presser, and we just make sure that that's okay and it's covering everything, and I can see that it is. We flip it back over, place our template plastic on that line that's joining number 2 to number 3, pull that back and get rid of our excess fabric. And as you can see, you're probably yourself are getting a little bit better with your amounts of fabric as well. So you can see that's a very minuscule amount of waste. Alrighty, so our next piece that we've got to add on is a black piece. So I just flip that over, and I'll just have a bit of a rummage through my scrap fabric and see if I can't find another black. Okay, so we've got another piece of black fabric here, and that's going to be perfect for this, and I can see that that's going to definitely cover that triangle and will be right to sew that on. So again, we just leave our fabrics facing up, and then we get our piece of fabric we're about to add on, and we do a right sides together. We grab ourselves a pin, pin that all in place, and make sure when we go to the sewing machine, because we've got to flip it over to sew, that everything is laying this way here, so it's not going to get caught up or anything like that. Okay, so we're going to head over to the sewing machine, and we're going to again stitch on that line. Okay, so we've stitched that down. Get rid of any of your long threads or anything like that, so they're not in the way on you. Again, we just flip our fabric back, grab our little hand presser, press that into place, flip it over, grab our template plastic, And now we're ready to lay it on that line again where B3 meets up with B4. Fold the paper back. And cut our 1/4 inch. So I've still got that piece there. I can set that aside for another one of my blocks. Turn it back over. And now we're going to grab our white fabric, which you can see here isn't quite big enough. Okay, so I've got another piece of fabric, and you can see here that that is going to line up with our raw edge there, right sides together, and that's definitely going to cover all of our template. Grab yourself a pin, pop that in just like so, head over to the sewing machine and stitch on that line again, and then we'll be ready to attach the two pieces A and B together. So now all we need to do is remove our pin, flip our fabric back, give it a little hand press. These hand presses are wonderful things. It saves you getting up and down to the ironing board for every single step. So now we are ready to trim up our template. So I just grab my ruler and my rotary cutter, again aligning our 1/4 inch mark of our ruler on that inner dark line, and trimming off the excess fabric. Now you have to really make sure that you do place your 1/4 inch mark properly onto that solid line, because this is your seam allowance that you're now trimming your template up, and if you deviate in, or if you have it too big, your template pieces aren't going to match up, and therefore your block's going to be out of skew, and you don't want that. Okay, so that is our little B template, and now we're going to attach A and B together. I'm just going to head over to the ironing board though and give this a little bit of a press before we sew it together. Okay, so at this point I like to just get my layout paper, and that way I know which way the block's got to go, and I just sit that off to the side for when I'm ready to lay all the block out. Now I went ahead and sewed the rest of my templates together, and basically now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay them out in the order that they need to go, just following the diagram, and then I will show you how I've assembled everything. So that one goes like that, and then I've got these two that I need to join together, so I know that the two squares according to the diagram go that way, and then that piece goes that way, and it gives us that pinwheel. So I need to join these together because you can see that these are a complete unit. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to just place these on top of one another, and I am just going to line up these triangles with this seam here, making sure that my raw edges are all aligning. This block actually gives you a taste of how some paper piecing can come. You can have many different templates that you've got to join together, and I thought it'd be a good little block to do because it came in rectangles, and now we're joining those rectangles to make the quarters of this particular block. Okay, so once you've lined everything up and you do have your seams aligning, you see how this one's, don't know whether you'll be able to see that on camera or not with the dark fabric, but you can see that those seams are not aligning, these center seams here, and that's what I want to nest up. So just like any other patchwork, you want to nest your seams up. So if I just do a quick little adjustment on that and make sure that all my raw edges are aligning, I can see now that that is aligning so much better. And now I'll be able to pop a pin in there, and that's going to hold it in place. And I always pop the pin where the seam is, and then that way I know that they're not going to misalign or anything while I'm just playing with the templates to get them to line up on this end here and up here as well. Alright, so now I've done that and I'm happy with how that's sitting. I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew the 1/4 inch seam allowance, but I'm going to sew on that dark line, and that way I won't lose my little point here or anything like that, but I want to be sewing directly on that line. And you don't want to come into the template, because you will lose your point that way. If you're worried when you're coming to it, just stop with the needle in the down position and just have a look where you're going to go. But you should not lose your point if you stay on that line. Okay, so we've sewn on that line, and you can see here that I've just gone on the line, and we'll open that up and we'll see how our points have gone. So there you go. You can see that I haven't lost my triangle point at all, and seams have matched up beautifully, and up the top here I've got a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So when I go to sew this into the quilt with the sashing, I'm not going to lose any points there. Okay, so you can see now that we've got it all lining up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to join, just like any other block, we're going to create our rows. So we're going to take this template here with this template here, lay them on top of one another, and we're going to make sure that our seams are aligning. So you can see there we've got 2 seams that need to align. And then I'll just grab my pins and pop a pin in there. And because we're working with slightly bigger pieces, I will put a pin just up this end and down the other end as well. And you are going to, just like we've done with everything else, we're just going to sew a 1/4 inch on that line. And then that will get our block coming together. But you will notice when you're putting your templates together, you can see here that we've got some diagonals that need to line up. Okay, so let me just get a clearer picture on that for you. So you can see there that they've got to line up, and they're just not meeting up for me. So I'm just going to nest them and pop a pin in there, and then I will play around with the rest of the block. So I know that they're not going to move, and then I'll just double check my center seam, because I've got a feeling that that might be slightly off when I've pinned it, and it was just a little bit. So if you find that something's not lining up when you come to this stage of it, just unpin it and just have a look and see if it is lining up. So I'm pretty happy with that now. That is all lining up a lot better. So now I'm going to head over to the sewing machine, and I am just going to stitch that. And then I'm going to repeat it for this one. Okay, so you can see there that we've sewn our blocks together, and now we're ready for the final seam that we need to sew. So basically all you're going to do is you're going to take your bottom one and you're going to lay it on top, and then you might need to pick a little bit of the paper out of the corners, but you're going to actually line up your center seam. And I always start in the center because it makes it a little bit more accurate than trying to work from the edge. And I find then you can fiddle around a little bit and make sure that everything's aligning up. Alrighty, so next we're going to align this seam here. There's 3 seams that we need to align on this block. And you just want to take it nice and slow and make sure that everything's going together for you. And then we're going to head over to the sewing machine and sew our final seam. Okay, so we've finished the block, and I'm pretty happy with how that's turned out. I'm going to give that a really good press. And now you can set that aside with the other blocks in your project folder, and that is the Clay's Choice block. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me today. I really do hope that you enjoyed our little tutorial on the Clay Choice block. It is a quick and easy block to go together, even though we had several templates. I've kept it relatively simple, and that way you can get an idea of some patterns that you get have multiple templates. So I hope you really did enjoy it, and if you did enjoy it, hit that thumbs up down below, leave us a comment and tell us what you thought, and also hit that subscribe button if you're new here, and the little bell icon beside it, and that way you won't miss out on any future posts. My name's Nicole Reed for Darvanalee Designs Studio, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye for now.